For more on how Ginsburg's death will impact the 2020 race, I want to bring in Reed Galen from Park City, Utah. He is the co-founder of the Lincoln Project, a political action committee led by current and former Republicans who oppose President Trump's re-election. Reed, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. So Republicans were highly motivated by the death of Justice Scalia back in 2016 to vote for President Trump to get another conservative on the bench. Do you expect to see that same energy now all of a sudden in 2020, even among maybe some Republicans like yourself who were on the fence or opposed initially to his reelection?
Well, I would say that what you're more likely to see is that the folks who have already decided that the court is their number one issue are probably already voting for Donald Trump. And so what I would say is that the energy, I think, is more likely to be on the Democratic side or with independent voters who are concerned about what it means to have a 6-3 court, who, not only about the obviously the hot button issue of something like abortion, but also things like, the Affordable Care Act and pre-existing conditions. And then I think there's more broadly the idea that, as my father used to say when I was a younger man, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And I think that what we see is just an immense amount of hypocrisy out of every one of these Republican senators who 4 years ago said we must wait until the people have had their choices. The ability to take their temperature, to make their choice, to vote their ballot, vote their conscience before we do anything like this. And now they're saying, well, we have the ability to do it. We have the right to do it. Donald Trump is well within his rights to do this. So let's just go ahead and do it.
It is pretty interesting, especially when the election has, as one of our earlier guests pointed out, already started. People have already started voting.
Right.
Your group is made up of current and former Republicans who oppose the president's reelection. Many of your ads have targeted some of the voters that he has lost over the past 4 years. So what would be the conservative argument now against allowing President Trump to nominate a justice who might share Republicans' views on issues like abortion or the Affordable Care Act?
Sure. I mean, I think first and foremost, at least in the old days, American conservatism used to really line up with institutionalism, that we cared about how government worked. I think there was also a real piece of, the idea that the federal government did not overreach. There was a constrained power. We have seen that for Donald Trump, this is not at all a tenet he ascribes to. And so I think from the conservative perspective also is that, if you're going to if you truly believe that the government is ultimately made up of the people, and you have previously said that as conservatives we should let the voters choose, then that should not have changed in 4 years just because the president has. And so, again, I think I would say it's a stunning level of hypocrisy, but it's really not stunning. I mean, the fact that you took someone like Mitch McConnell, who, it was in its crassness and lack of decorum, waited an hour after Justice Ginsburg's death had been announced to say he was going to give a nominee a vote. I mean, it's fundamentally unkind. It's fundamentally un-American, and it's just not what the country needs right now. The country needs wise leaders who, when understanding what it means to take a step like this, take the longer view, take the step back and say, we're 44 days from an election. As you said, but the election has begun. This is not going to happen before an election. It's happening during an election. And from my perspective, that's a fundamentally unconservative thing to do. But the American conservatives today are really Trump in name only. I mean, that's who they are. They whatever the tenets they used to ascribe to, whether or not that was, again, limited federal government, personal liberty, fiscal conservatism, a moral and muscular foreign policy, those are all gone. It's now whatever Donald Trump wants, whatever Mitch McConnell wants, that's what they're going to go for.
Can I ask you, why do you think that happened?
Cowardice, fear. They decided that it was easier to go along to get along, that maybe he wouldn't be as bad as he was. Maybe we could use him as some vehicle to further our own causes. And ultimately, you can start out that way. But now, they're fearful of the nickname and the mean tweet. They have abandoned their offices. They've abandoned their oaths. And so I think they have become willing participants in his play as we get toward November.
And Reed, the Lincoln Project is also looking to boost Joe Biden's chances with Latino voters. Some are saying he needs a little help in that category. So let's play a clip of one of your latest ads on the president's record with Hispanics.
This man is not like the presidents we knew and trusted. Instead of respect, we get insults.
These are our people. These are animals.
Instead of inclusion, we get excluded.
It's an invasion.
Instead of compassion, we get disdain.
You can't. There's no.
This man is not making America great again, especially for Latinos, because the president considers us second-class citizens.
It's an invasion.
So, Reed, why do you believe that President Trump seems to be outperforming some of his 2016 numbers with Latino voters? And how else is the Lincoln Project trying to persuade them to vote for Biden this fall?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I think remember that when we see these surveys, they're snapshots in time. So, when they took a particular poll, that's what those were the responses they get. I think also when it comes to Florida, we should not forget that a lot of these numbers are made up from, a Cuban community that tends to be more conservative than other Latino voters, generally speaking. But I think that if you look at what the president says in that ad and what he said in numerous other times, what he has done is the sort of classic authoritarian and race baiting piece, which is he has turned subjects into objects. He is dehumanizing Latinos in this country, whether or not they're natural-born citizens, whether they're naturalized, or whether or not they've come here in search of a better life. And so from our perspective, there's a lack of humanity that the president has espoused from his, from the moment he came down the golden escalator in Trump Tower in 2015. And so from our perspective, we will go in and we will find those voters like the Puerto Rican community in Central Florida, about 200,000 voters who have left the island since Hurricane Maria. We communicate to them directly. We also communicate in San Juan to those folks who have seen their family members leave to say, you know what, things are never going to get better while Donald Trump's in office. You're going to continue to be considered second-class citizens, regardless of whatever, recent aid package they said they were going to put together. The truth is, at the end of the day, he has been the harshest of harsh when it comes to immigrants. We still see kids and families in cages. Now we have these stories of forced hysterectomies at government and federal facilities. It's unconscionable. It's absolutely unconscionable.
Well, Reed Galen of the Lincoln Project, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.